Hi, this is lesson 8.5, add and subtract rational expressions. Our big question here is, what are the steps for adding or subtract rational expressions with different denominators? Because this is when it gets tricky. It's when it has different denominators. Okay, so here's our frame. Add and subtract rational expressions is about using least common denominators, or LCDs, we'll see it written as, to add or subtract rational expressions. So we're using least common denominators, LCDs, to add or subtract rational expressions. And a thing to remember is that factoring may help too. You don't have to factor everything, but some of these you definitely will need to factor. Let's fill the so what statement in as long as we're on this frame right here. The thing that you must remember, you must have a common denominator in order to add or subtract fractions. Adding and subtract rational expressions is just like when you add and subtract regular numbers. A common denominator is a must. So let's look at these problems right here. First of all, we're going to add them with like denominators. So if you notice, this has both 6x and this has 6x, so they're common denominators. Here has x plus 3, and this one has x plus 3 as well. So for both 1 and 2, we have common denominators. When you have common denominators, all you have to do is add the numerator so you got to add the numerator. Okay, you add the numerator and leave the denominator the same. So here my numerator is 9 and 2, so 9 plus 2 is 11. So it's 11 over 6x. So I added my denominator, and I added my numerator and left my denominator the same. Here I have 15 plus 2x. Now those are not like terms, so we can't combine them. You just have to write it 15 plus 2x. And then you leave your denominator exactly how it is, x plus 3. Now we're going to do it when they have unlike denominators. So what you have to look for, this one has a 2 in the denominator and this one has a 3x. You have to think of what are they missing. So we have to remember to make a common denominator. So I'm going to put a note here. Make common denominator. Okay, once you make it, then you can add the numerator and denominator. So I always ask myself, well, what's this missing that the other has? Well, this has 3x and this doesn't have the 3x. And this one doesn't have a 2. So we need to multiply this one, the top and bottom, by 3x, and this one, the top and bottom, by 2. So I'm going to multiply by 3x over 3x. Remember, anything over itself is just like 1, so it's like multiplying by 1. It just changes the way it looks. And then I'm going to multiply this one by 2 over 2. Again, 2 over 2 is just 1, so it just changes the way it looks. Let's simplify now. 3x times 5x, well, that's going to be 15x squared. Plus 4 times 2 is 8. So I have 15x squared plus 8. I'm going to remind myself right now those are not common. They're not like terms, so we cannot combine them together. On the bottom, 3x times 2 is 6x. Here, 3x times 2 is 6x. So the bottom is just 6x. The next problem here, number 4, again, we have different denominators. This one's got x minus 1. This doesn't have x minus 1, so I need to multiply the top and bottom of this one by x minus 1. This one is missing that x plus 2, so I need to multiply the top and bottom by x plus 2. So let's do that. We say x plus 2 over x plus 2 on this side. And on the other side, I'm going to multiply this one by x minus 1 over x minus 1. So on the top, let's do our simplifying here, do a little distributing. And actually, I'm just going to rewrite this once before I do my simplifying here. So I've got x minus 1 times x plus 2, and that's the same on both bottoms, so it's now my common denominator. On the top, my first term has 16 times x plus 2, plus, over here I've got 4x times x minus 1. So my final answer is going to have this x minus 1 times x plus 2 on the bottom. And I can keep it in that form. We can keep our denominator just like that. But the top we need to simplify. So let's go through and simplify it. And I'm going to simplify it right above. So 16 times x is 16x. 16 times 2 is 32. So I have 16x plus 32. That's what that simplifies to. And on the other one, 4x times x is 4x squared. 4x times a negative 1 is minus 4x. So I have 4x squared minus 4x. And these are added, and since they're added, it doesn't matter what order I do this. Now I'm just going to combine my like terms and simplify here. So 4x squared, that comes first. My next one, 16x and minus 4x, those are like terms. So 16x minus 4x, well, that is 12x. So plus 12x. And then finally, I have this 32 left over. So I need to say plus 32. And here is my final answer. There's my final answer. Let's move on to subtracting. So now we're going to subtract rational expressions. And our first two have like denominators again. So what we need to remember is we just need to add the numerators. Since they have, actually not add, we're doing subtracting, so we want to subtract. Subtract the numerators here. Okay, common denominator, so we just subtract the top. So in this first problem, my bottom is going to stay x plus 2. And then on the top, I have x minus 3. So my top is just x minus 3. Those are not like terms, so we can't combine them. They stay in that form. And here's my answer. This next one, my common denominator, is 3x plus 4. So I'm going to keep that common denominator the same. And on the top, I've got 5x minus 1. And again, those are not like terms, so it has to stay 5x minus 1. And here's my answer. The bottom, excuse me, again, I have unlike denominators now, so we have to remember to make common denominators. Got to remember that whenever you see that your bottoms are different and it's adding or subtracting, you've got to make your common denominators. So looking at these, 5 and 12. Well, 5 doesn't go into 12. So I need to multiply the top and bottom of this one by 12 and the top and bottom of this one by 5. So I'm going to do 12 over 12. And over here, I'm going to multiply by 5 over 5. Okay. That will leave me on the bottom, 12 times 5 is 60. So that'll leave me 60 on the bottom. 12 times 6 here. Well, 12 times 6 is 72. So I've got 72 minus 3x times 5 is 15x. So 72 minus 15x. And looking at those, I can recognize, and this is something that you should always look for, all of these numbers have the factor of 3. So 3 goes into all 3 of these. So we need to divide them all by 3. So I'm going to put a little note here so you remember what we did. Divide by 3. So if I divide 72 by 3, I get 24. 15 divided by 3 is 5, and then I still have my x, and 60 divided by 3 is 20. Now looking here, 24, 5, and 20, those don't have any common factors, so I know that this is my simplified form. Looking at this next problem here, 3 times the quantity x minus 2, and this has x plus 1. So this doesn't have the x plus 1, and this doesn't have the 3x minus 2. So we need to multiply the top and bottom of the left side by x plus 1. So x plus 1 over x plus 1. And on the right side, I'm going to multiply this one by 3 times the quantity x minus 2. I'm going to do that to the top and bottom both. Okay, so my common denominator now. Let's look at everything we've got on the bottom. We've got 3 times the quantity x minus 2. And then we've also got this x plus 1. We've also got that on the bottom. So let's do some simplifying now. I've got x plus 1 times 4x squared. So I'm going to write that one out here. 4x squared times x plus 1 minus, and on the other side, I've got 6 times 3, well that's 18, times x minus 2. So 18 times x minus 2. Okay, our bottom we can keep in this form, but the top we cannot keep like this. So our top we need to simplify. So the bottom, I'm going to keep it 3 times the quantity x minus 2 times x plus 1. Okay, I'm going to keep that bottom exactly in that form, but the top I need to simplify. So let's simplify the top here, and I'm going to write this right down here. So 4x squared times x is 4x to the third. Four x squared times a positive 1 is 4x squared. So plus 4x squared. Okay, and I like to think of this as plus a negative. So I'm going to make this plus. Negative 18 times x is negative 18x. And then I've got negative 18 times a negative 2, and that's a positive 36. So let's see if we can combine any of these terms. This is x to the third, x squared, a plain x, and 36. So none of those are like terms. So our top just needs to stay exactly how it is because those are in the correct order still. They are in standard form. So 4x to the third plus 4x squared minus 18x plus 36. And that is my final answer right there. I'm just going to kind of circle that in a different color. That is my final answer. Okay, let's look at the other side of our frame. The other side is still adding or subtracting rational expressions. Now they're going to get a little bit different. What you have to remember for these problems is that you need factoring each denominator first, then using LCDs to add or subtract the fractions. So for these ones, we're going to have to do some factoring. So we're going to factor our denominator first. You might need to factor, let's see here. That's factored, and that's factored. So you won't need to factor any of the numerators, just the denominators for these ones. Okay, let's look at this one. And now we've got a little bit more difficult problems. We've got to start by factoring the bottom here, though. So you've got to think, what can I multiply together to get 9? That adds up to 3. And I know that that's 3 times 3. So the bottom here, I have x plus 3 times x plus 3. And the bottom of this other one right here, x squared minus 9, I notice that this is a perfect square and this is a perfect square, and they're the difference. So I know I've got a special rule, and it makes it x plus 3 times x minus 3. So we've got to see what each piece is missing. This has got 2 x plus 3s, so that's x plus 3 squared. This one's only got 1 x plus 3, but it's also got an x minus 3. So we multiply this one by x minus 3 and this one by another x plus 3. So let's write that out here. Let's rewrite this so I've got a little bit more space here. So I've got, on the bottom of my first one, I need to multiply it by x minus 3. So I'm going to do that to the top and bottom. But I've already got x plus 1 on the top. And on the bottom, I've got x plus 3 squared, because x plus 3 times x plus 3 is x plus 3 squared. Plus, on the other side, I've got 6 on the top already, but I need another x plus 3, because I need to multiply the top and bottom of this one by the x plus 3 that's missing. So x plus 3 times another x plus 3, remember, would be x plus 3 squared. And then I've still got that x minus 3. So even though I wrote them in the opposite direction, we've still got common denominators here. So now let's do some simplifying. So the top of this first one, x times x is x squared. X times 1 is 1x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times 1 is minus 3. And I've got plus, let's look at the top of this other one. 6 times x is 6x, and 6 times 3 is 18. So I've got plus 6x plus 18. And I can combine them all together like that because it's all addition. And on the bottom, I've got x plus 3 squared times x minus 3. And remember, we can keep our denominators in that form. We just need to combine the tops here. Combine our like terms. So I've got x squared. It doesn't have a like term, so I need to keep that, x squared. 1x plus a negative 3x is negative 2x, plus 6x is 4x. And then negative 3 plus 18 is 15. So my top is x squared plus 4x plus 15. My bottom stays x plus 3, the quantity squared, times the quantity x minus 3. And this is my final answer. So remember, we looked to see what's the bottom missing. First we factored, then we asked what's the bottom missing, and then we multiplied the top and bottom of each side by the missing things. So sometimes you'll have to multiply both fractions by something. Sometimes you might only have to multiply one fraction by something. Now we're going to do a subtracting problem. And you've got room to write on yours, but mine's kind of running out of space. So I'm going to rewrite these a little bit larger. I'm going to factor out the bottom right now. So 3x and minus 9, I know 3 goes into both of those. So I'm going to take that 3 out, and I'd be left with x minus 3. Minus, in the top here I have x plus 4. And on the bottom, x squared minus 9, I notice that's the difference of two squares, so it factors into x plus 3 times x minus 3. So now let's see what's missing from the top and bottom of each one. Well, this has got 3x minus 3. This one's got an x plus 3. So I need to multiply the top and bottom by that x plus 3 for this problem. Okay, this one's got x plus 3 and x minus 3, but it's missing this 3. So I need to multiply the top and bottom of this one by 3. So I found what each one is missing. So I'm going to change this to plus, and I'm going to give the opposite sign to that 3 right there. I like to change my subtracting to addition. It just makes it a little easier. So my bottoms for both of them, I have 3 times the quantity x plus 3 times the quantity x minus 3. And on the top, I need to do a little simplifying here. So 7 times x is 7x. 7 times 3 is 21. So I have 7x plus 21. Now I've got a plus sign in the middle because I changed it to addition. And I've got negative 3 times x, that's negative 3x. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. So I have minus 3x and then minus 12. My bottom is going to stay exactly the same for my final answer. And then the top, let's combine our like terms. 7x plus a negative 3x is 4x. 21 plus a negative 12 is 9. So my top becomes 4x plus 9. And that's my final answer. I can keep the bottom in that form. Okay, on this last problem, let's again start by factoring the bottom. So 4x squared, well, I can't factor that. I could think of it as 4x times x, though. So let's think of it as 4x times x. So this first one is going to become 8 over 4x times x. In this next one, we've got a minus sign. That looks kind of like a y. Let's make it an x. The other one here, I've got 2 plus x on the top. And on the bottom, both of these terms have an x in them, so I can take an x out. And 4 is a factor of both 8 and 12, so I can take 4 out as well. So I can take 4x out of both terms. And for the first term, 8x squared divided by 4x would leave me with 2x. Minus 12x divided by 4x would leave me with just a 3. So both of these have a 4x. This one is missing this other x, and this one is missing this 2x minus 3. So let's multiply both sides by what they're missing. Okay, and we said the first side was missing the 2x minus 3. And then the second one is missing an x. I'll put some parentheses around there, times x. I need another times x there. So I've seen what both sides are missing. So my common denominator now is 4x times x, which is 4x squared, times the quantity 2x minus 3. And on the top, let's again change this a little bit. I'm going to change this to addition. So I'm going to say plus. I'm going to think of this as negative 1 times all of that. I like to be able to change everything to addition because then I can more easily combine my like terms. So here I've got 8 times 2x. 8 times 2x is 16x. And I've got 8 times a minus 3, that's minus 24. Plus, on this other side, I've got negative 1 times x, that's negative x, times 2 is negative 2x. So I've got minus 2x. And then negative 1 times x again, that was where I got my negative x, times x is negative x squared. So let's now put these in their right order and combine our like terms. We're going to keep the bottom 4x squared times the quantity 2x minus 3. And you have room to write this in your frame. I can't write quite small enough again. And the first thing that we got to write first is this minus x squared, because when we put it in standard form, we look at our powers. That's got the highest power, so that comes first. I've got 16x and a negative 2x. Well, that's 14x, so plus 14x. And then I've got that minus 24 left over. So this is my final answer. Remember, you can keep your bottom in this form. We do have to simplify the top, though. And that is all for this lesson. Remember, if you have any questions that didn't make sense at all, make sure you star them so that we can talk about them tomorrow in class. Have a great day.